Hi guys, my name is Alex and today I am going to debunk 3 OCD myths that many people believe. The first one is that OCD is just being neat and organized. This is a really common one because it's kind of stigmatized in the media that if you have OCD, you like things clean, neat, organized, you don't like messy rooms, you like things a certain way, you like things color-coded. That is not the truth about OCD. Well, it's not the whole truth. And by that I mean that might be some people's obsession is organization and cleanliness, but there's so much more to OCD. There's relationship OCD, there's religious OCD, there's contamination OCD. There's so many more as well. And the whole common occurrence is that you have racing, repetitive, intrusive thoughts that cause you an extreme amount of stress, and you feel the need to do something, which would be a compulsion, that would short-term relieve the anxiety. So yeah, somebody can like their room really neat and organized and clean and like, things a certain way, but that doesn't mean that they have OCD. That's just being tidy, or, it's just being tidy. It doesn't mean that you have OCD, because for it to be OCD, you have to have like so much anxiety and stress from these thoughts that it starts to debilitate you from living a normal life. The second myth is that people with OCD just need to stop overthinking. We've all probably heard it before. If you have OCD, somebody tells you, oh, just stop overthinking it. Like, just stop thinking about it. And that's kind of like a double-edged sword, because the problem is, if you tell one, you can't just stop thinking something. And the problem is when you tell someone to stop thinking something, or you tell yourself to stop thinking something, is that the thoughts are only going to come back more. There's this analogy that somebody used a long time ago when I first had been diagnosed with OCD, and it's very common within the OCD community. But if your therapist, if somebody tells you to not, if somebody says don't think about a pink elephant, the first thing that is going to pop into your mind is a pink elephant. So when you tell somebody to stop thinking something, it only makes that thought come back more, because you're trying so hard to avoid it. So people with OCD can't just stop thinking things. Their mind is literally racing, and these thoughts are uncontrollable. They're repetitive. They're consistent. They occur over a long period of time. And you can't, anybody knows that you can't just stop thinking. It's just not possible. And especially when you have OCD, like I said, the more you avoid, the more the thought comes back harder. And so I've heard it many times in my recovery journey, like, oh, you just, need to relax. You just need to think about something else. And although people may have good intentions, that can also, like I said, just be really hurtful, and harmful, because as I just mentioned, the more you try to not think about something, the more that thought is going to pop up. We know that's what happens with OCD. The third myth is that everybody is just a little bit OCD. I've heard that so many times in my recovery journey, and just talking to people who are asking me about OCD. They're like, oh yeah, I'm a little OCD too. Like I said, I like my room clean, and if it's not clean, it stresses me out. And like I said, that can be OCD, but it's only OCD when it starts affecting you from living your life. And the one thing that I really learned about OCD is that if you like it, it's not OCD. So a lot of people will be like, oh yeah, I like my room really clean and organized, and I'm proud of myself for that, and it's something I like about myself. It's not OCD if you enjoy it. OCD is unwanted, intrusive thoughts. So, like I said, when I struggled with religious OCD, I had these harmful, sexual, violent, intrusive thoughts about my faith, and they were all day, every day, from the time I woke up to the time I went to bed. I had relationship OCD where I would have thoughts that I cheated on my partner, and it would be all day long. And the part that people forget about OCD, like I said, is that it leads to a compulsion. So, for relationship OCD, my compulsion was confessing. And if I didn't confess, it would eat at me over and over and over again. And to the point where I'm like, I have to confess or I'm not going to feel better. And that's the thing with OCD is that it will sell this lie that if you confess or, if you ask for reassurance and you do the compulsion, that you're going to feel better. Like the anxiety is going to go away. And it might go away short term, but it's always going to come back because that's how OCD works. The more you fuel the OCD cycle, the more you give into your compulsions, the stronger OCD grows. And I know that sucks because nobody wants to feel anxious. And especially when you have OCD, it's heightened even more than just normal anxiety. But unfortunately, we have to do what we don't want to do. And that is what I learned in exposure response prevention therapy, that when these thoughts came up, instead of running to ask for reassurance, instead of running to do a compulsion, I had to learn to sit with it. And by that means not doing anything. Just sitting with my intrusive thoughts, sitting with the anxiety, and doing nothing. And that sucks, believe me. It was not fun in the beginning because I did that and the anxiety kept coming back more and more. It wasn't going away. And that's because when you start giving into compulsions, your OCD is going to want to try to fight back harder. So it's going to give you more thoughts, it's going to give you more anxiety. And that's what happens in the beginning. But the more you learn to resist these compulsions, the stronger you become. You start to break the OCD cycle. OCD weakens, and over time, it gets so much easier to sit with anxiety. When I first started therapy, I could only resist compulsions for a few minutes at a time, or like 45 seconds at a time. I would literally sit with my therapist in therapy and we would just like stare at each other. And she would ask me, what are you feeling? Like, what's coming up for you? But the more I did it, the easier it became because your brain starts to rewire itself in like a positive way where you know that you don't need compulsions. You don't need compulsions to feel better. And that you realize that they're actually hurting you and they're making the OCD worse. So I was in therapy for like 9 months at a time, and things didn't really start clicking until I was 6 months in, and I was really like going a long time without giving into compulsion. So something that my therapist would have me do is set a timer on my phone, and even just starting at like 2 minutes. And when those thoughts came up and I wanted to give into my compulsion, I would set the timer on my phone and I'd have to sit with it for as long as I could. And then if I could sit with it for 2 minutes, I added another 2 minutes. And I kept going to see how long I could go without giving into the compulsion. And like I said, over time, doing it, like anything, practice makes perfect. The more I did it, it kind of just became second nature. So when these thoughts came up, because I had worked really hard, and by working really hard, I mean doing nothing, when these thoughts come up, it just became so much easier in second nature. So now when these thoughts come up, because I did exposure response prevention and I didn't avoid my fears, I didn't try to stop thinking something, I let those thoughts come at full force. Now when they come up, I just let them be there. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I can let a thought be there and I don't have to do anything about it. Like, that thought doesn't have to say anything about me. It's just a thought and there's nothing more to it. So now when I have these thoughts come up, I'm able to just not relax, but just feel like, okay, like there's a thought. I'm going to move on with my day now. And that was possible because I did exposure response prevention. So if this sounds like you and you are struggling with OCD, repetitive thoughts, compulsions, I really suggest that you go to NOCD.com. They are specialized therapists in treating OCD. So they know how OCD works. They know that sometimes, most of the time, talk therapy is not helpful for OCD. They will talk to you and give you a little consultation and help you figure out the best treatment for you. So I hope this video was helpful, and if you want to follow me, you can follow me on Instagram at RecoverOCD. Make sure to follow NOCD on Instagram, and I hope you guys have a great day. Bye.